Hey, everybody, it's Chris Elmore and
Chris Loudermilk
with another edition of the Service Contractor Radio Show, brought to you by Service Excellence Training, where we turn learning into earning. This week, we're continuing. You have to press before you play with the second S and the last letter in
of press. Whoa. Jinx, you owe me an orange dreamsicle.
That's pretty good. System Diagnostic or System Design. Stay tuned. So we got another email this week.
We did.
Superfan. I'm going to call him Superfan.
Of me?
No, he said CNC multiple. He gave us a lot of names.
He did.
The
CNC
Dynamic
Music
Duo.
Factory. I think CNC Music Factory.
I don't know
Duo,
about the Music Factory. Dynamic Duo, Comedy Team.
Loudermilk and his sidekick.
No, I think it was Elmore and his sidekick. We got another email today, or this week.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. You know who sent it. And it was very complimentary about the program. And they like the banter.
Oh.
So we'll keep the banter, but we'll get to the point sooner.
The military calls it the bluff, the bottom line up front. I actually wrote an article titled The Bluff in the Franchising World magazine.
In that publication, it could not be more aptly titled since you wrote it.
The bottom line up front.
No, the bluff part.
Franchises are good. The end. There's 2,000 words for you.
Okay, if you're watching the video, I just took a sip out of my can here, and I have my can koozie on that is it's Hunter Orange, and it says Brandy and Chris, and on the other side it says the hunt is over, and the date of Christopher Kalen Loudermilk's wedding, which
Funeral.
is what? Go.
1818.
Good job. Okay, how many months have you been married? Go.
So.
Anyway, just for clarification, I'm drinking HEB sparkling water.
Why do you have to clarify that? Does it look like a beer?
It looks like a beer.
What beer is like that?
Coors Light. It can look like a Coors Light.
It could. The mountains are blue.
You know, K-Raj calls it Coors Light.
Coors Light.
So some people might be happy. We know Terry Barrett's going to be happy about
That's
this.
right.
Because this last weekend was the last weekend of buck season, and probably the last weekend I'll hunt deer, because there's only 2 more weeks left, and it's doe only, so I probably won't hunt anymore.
I'm going to
You
hunt.
will?
Yeah, we've got the Sandhill hunt.
Oh, I know that, but
and
I mean,
then
you
down
deer
in
hunt?
South Texas, it'll be doe and spike. And since we didn't take any deer this year, I'll probably harvest a couple.
And that's for you're going with Dad.
Yep.
Okay.
Father-son hunt.
Nice.
This will be the 14th.
That's pretty cool.
It is really cool.
That's a good tradition with you and your dad.
It's fun sitting out in the blind with him, listening to stories, getting advice, not taking enough of the good advice he gives me.
That verified.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
hashtag true story.
But yeah, it'll be good. And then quail season ends at the end of February, so we'll have some opportunity to go chase those guys around and get refreshed.
Yeah.
Mother Nature.
Yeah, and we know Terry Barrett hates it, so he'll be happy hunting season's over.
What refreshes you?
I can tell you what doesn't. Wind turbines.
Wind turbines are not refreshing.
They're freaky. No, I like getting away. I like being out like at the hunting lease, because when you're there, you only have to worry about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing stuff like I dug a hole. You don't dig holes.
And you chopped down a tree.
And I sawed down a tree with a chainsaw.
That took entirely too long.
Well, the chainsaw didn't have any oil in it, and you know as well as I do, right after you used it, you could have lit a match on the end of that thing without even moving it.
It was smoking.
You could have started a campfire with it.
I love it. You know what? We're looking for a weekly theme that we can talk about. If you got any good ideas, maybe it's what did you do this week to refresh you?
Okay.
That could be good.
I thought our weekly theme was hunting.
Well, it is.
And people love hunting, like Terry Barrett. Oh, wait, no, he doesn't. He hates it.
He does hate it. So you do something refreshing the weekend after you listen to this, if you're listening or watching.
There you go, because we know you spend part of your weekend listening to this because it comes out on Fridays, and you're working on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you have time on the weekend, of course, you're practicing these skills, so you're listening to this podcast.
Treat yourself.
Do
something refreshing.
Okay, so this week, amazingly, we probably got into the topic way faster than we normally do. But this week, we're going to talk about the second S. Oh, a little too far right here. The second S. Yeah, you could do like taking a picture here. Take a picture. I'm holding your head. I'm squeezing your head down. But so we're going to talk about the second S in press play, which stands for, okay, you're pinching my head. I got it. Stands for System Diagnostic if you're a tech.
Or System Design if you're a professional salesperson.
That's right. So we're going to talk about it in both perspectives. And I'm going to let you start because there's one thing I know you love to talk about. What are we going to do better than any company?
We're going to be more thorough than anybody else.
That's exactly right. And so we're talking about System Diagnostic. Most, if not all of our companies should be, but most of them are using a color-coded diagnostic checklist. And we talked, when we did the Settle Anxieties podcast, we talked about the CAP statement, setting expectations, and what the color codes meant, and those kind of things. Well, now's the time where we start fulfilling expectations.
Fulfilling and then exceeding them.
Exactly. So when it comes to the System Diagnostic, there's just a few points. Number one, you're using your checklist, and you've set that expectation for the customer. So the customer knows there's a prescribed process you're going to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And they may not know what that is, but if it's on paper, they have an idea of it. But talk about thoroughness. I was looking over at my note over there. Talk about thoroughness, your perspective on that from a tech, and then talk about it from the perspective of the professional salesperson.
So we'll go from professional salesperson first, or if you're a technician running what I would consider a big ticket call.
Yeah.
Electrician.
And let's clarify. That doesn't always mean HVAC, because sometimes we can get on that track.
Half of the sales class that we put on in Austin is HVAC. The other half is plumbers, electricians, roofers. Mm-hmm. We've had chimney guys come in, restoration guys. Yep. And so it's running a bigger ticket call. So electricians, you're looking at, the homeowner has specifically called you out there to look at their panel because they want to replace it. Plumbers, they have an issue with their main line. They want a new water heater. This would be considered a bigger ticket call. So when it comes to the system design, the mantra that we coach and preach is we have to be more thorough than everybody else. Mm-hmm. And depending on your market, it could be different everywhere. So I'll give you some examples. HVAC, electrical, and plumbing. Are you taking out a FLIR infrared camera and showing the homeowner what does FLIR stand for? Forward-looking infrared. I only know that because of hunting. Thank you, hunting.
See, Terry, there is a benefit.
Yeah. Are you busting out the FLIR camera? Are you looking at the ductwork? Plumbers, when you're going in and looking at a water heater, are you just going and looking what they have and then giving them options? Are you going through their entire system to see if their water heater went out to a contributing factor, such as poor water quality? Electricians, are you just looking at the panel, or are you looking at the wire? And so one of my favorite stories to tell is when my parents replaced their first heating and cooling system. My dad had just retired. He was 67 or 68 years old.
It could still crush your face.
Yes. That is a fact. He got 7 bids. He's that guy. 7 bids. And
I can totally see that.
He called me beforehand and he said, "This is your wheelhouse. What should I expect?" And I said, "It's going to be completely dependent on the company, the companies that you call." Mm-hmm. So he got everything from guys coming out and giving him a quote within 5 minutes, and which is the worst. And then he got what I would consider a company that did it the right way. Mm-hmm. And the interesting part when it comes to system design or system diagnostic is it's going to be different for everyone. And the value that they place on certain things is going to be different. So let me give you the prime example of that. When they called me, Dad says, "We got our 7 bids. I think you would be surprised." Let me do my dad voice. He's a high C. "I think you'd be surprised, son. We ended up going with the most expensive." And I said, "Well, doesn't surprise me. Why?" And he said 2 reasons. One, the company that we chose, the technician was the only one that went up in the attic and looked at the ductwork. Mm-hmm. And then he starts spouting off some Comfort Institute stuff, like national.
Yeah.
He's like,
"Why wouldn't he?
Did you know that every time there's a leak in your duct, you're losing 1% efficiency? Son, we've been throwing 17 cents out of the window for God knows how long." I'm like, all right.
Where did he get it? From Google or the guy?
Probably the Googles.
Okay. All right. You're an expert because you can Google things.
Right. And so they were the only ones that went above and beyond. Mm-hmm. And this was in the summertime, so the attic was hot. This technician decided he wanted to do more. And because they had the best guarantees and warranties, my mom gets on the phone. And I said, "Mom, what did you like about him? And she said, well, the tech was really cute and sweet.
And he didn't smell.
And he was the only one that put a cloth underneath the attic access. And that wore floor savers, and she did all this stuff. And she said she kept the house clean. So if he's going to keep the house that clean when they're doing this, they're, I know what to expect. My mom makes the decisions in that house. Don't get it twisted. My dad was a lieutenant colonel. His value was guarantees and warranties and thoroughness. My mom was cute, sweet, and clean.
Yep.
Cute, sweet, and clean.
And those are the value points. So that's why you got to be thorough, because you never know.
Exactly. And that's why there's no such thing as the perfect script or the perfect customer, because everybody is different.
Well, here's the other thing too about thoroughness. And, if you look at Press Play and Maggie, mindset, appearance, goals, integrity, explore, right? So there's the explore part. You're asking all these questions to find out information about the system, no matter what it is, or the thing. Then you are doing your cap statement, settle anxieties, and you're setting the expectation of what you're going to do. So you're doing all these things. Here's what irritates me about not being thorough, because I think thorough means checking everything before you make a recommendation, unless there's an emergency going on and it is property damage.
Yeah, but that's the exception to the
It's
rule.
exception, right? It doesn't happen that often. And so I had this question from Tony at Gotelli Plumbing. Shout out to Gotelli Plumbing.
Godel.
So I had this question from Tony today, and he says, well, what if you get there and you got to do, something like that happens, you do that first, and then you go back to him. What should you do? Should you do that? Well, so only in the case of an emergency, because here's what I hate. This happened to us recently in my daughter's car, and I think I've said something about it on the podcast before. We took it in, and as a consumer, just like your customers out there would be, they're thinking when you show up or you take your car to the shop, you're thinking they're going to fix what you tell them to.
Fix the problem.
That's what they're calling you for, and that's what you're going to do. Because they are fixated on that, because that's the drama and anxiety and all that's in their life. And this is the forced buy, which we've talked about. So they only expect you to talk about those things unless you tell them you're going to do otherwise. We talked about that in Settle Anxieties. We're setting the stage that we're going to look at everything. So what happened with my daughter's car is it had to get towed in. They said, we're going to get right on it and find out what's going on. They fixed that, but then there was all this other stuff that needed to be done.
Yeah, brakes and
headlights.
So, and
first of all,
wipers.
They didn't tell me they were checking all of it, which that's a different thing. That's expectations. But the other thing is they didn't, or it was, why didn't you tell me about all of it before you committed me to just fixing it, right? And so if you go to a home for the diagnostic techs out there, if you're going into a home, check everything you can possibly check in the current state. And sometimes there's acceptable shortcuts to make something work temporarily while you diagnose it. You're a professional. You can do that. You can do it safely. So whether it's HVAC, plumbing, electric, doesn't matter. There's ways to make things work sometimes where you can check things under operation. Not under ideal conditions, not under normal running conditions, but you can check things. Because, like, for instance, the issue that came up with plumbing was, well, they had a clogged drain. Their main line was stopped up. So I took care of that, and then I did the checklist. The problem with that is you diminish the chances the customer's going to do anything else after they've already committed to clean the main line.
Right.
Why they're not worried about the other stuff that is yellow now, because they've already committed to this major repair.
Right. Here's $900, and you want me to replace the angle stops underneath the sink? I mean, that makes no sense. So you do have to set the expectations, but the biggest part that I see missed, and I do, as Forrest Gump would say, a gazillion skill evaluations a year, maybe a slight exaggeration, half a gazillion, is this stuff is the most commonly missed stuff. And I tell my guys that I get the opportunity to train HVAC. If you don't do a load calc when you're looking at replacing a system, and I come in behind you, or one of the guys that I've trained that comes in behind you, will absolutely destroy your credibility without saying one negative thing. Plumbers, if you go behind someone that all they did was give them a quote for a new water heater and didn't do a full system evaluation, you should be able to destroy their credibility without saying a negative word. Because part of it's a fundamental belief. I fundamentally believe you should not be replacing a water heater unless you look at the entire system.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
fundamentally believe you should not be replacing an electrical panel unless you look at the
Well, hold on.
entire home.
But it's even with electrical. It's even that particular example. The customer calls you and wants you to hang a ceiling fan.
You can't.
How do you know you can do it? You have to do the evaluation to see, because, and this goes to continue what I was saying earlier too, is it goes with this, is if you tell me that my main line is stopped up and I need to have it cleaned, but then you don't talk about the angle stops and all that, then I feel like you gave me information later that maybe I could have used in the beginning. Now, is an angle stop related to a main line? Not really, but it's all plumbing system.
It's underneath the kitchen sink.
And so here's the thing. Maybe repairing the main line and doing these other things fits into something else for me, like a major remodel of the house. And I go, oh, well, I can do it this way. Just like the car, replacing the fuel pump sensor for $700. Maybe I would have thought differently about that if it was fuel pump sensor and the brakes. Maybe I would have said, don't do any of it, because we'd spend more than we could get if we sold it now.
Yep.
So make sure the customer has all the information so they can make a great decision, because my guideline, especially for techs, is you need to look at 3 to 5 years down the road and advise the customer on the best decision 3 to 5 years from now. And that might be replacement of an HVAC system, HVAC system. Ugh, can't talk.
Oof.
Or replacement of a toilet. You know, it might be the replacement of an electrical panel, but it might not be.
Right.
And so, I mean, those are clearly defined situations. There's not a lot of gray area there.
That's pretty black and white.
But if you don't give them all the information up front by doing a very thorough diagnostic or design, how can they possibly make the best decision? How can you possibly give them your best recommendation as a professional consultant if you don't do that?
You can't. You're taking poo-poo and you're throwing it against the wall and hoping something sticks. And this is where all this process starts tying in together, or these principles tying together, which is the evaluation, whether you're doing it before or during your design or diagnostic. I don't understand how guys can make recommendations without knowing how long they want to stay in the home.
I know, that's crazy. And, you know, that goes back to the questions that we ask,
right?
Which is
rewind 2 episodes ago.
Yeah. So just quick review. What's up? What's going on? You know, what were you wanting to do? That whatever the question you start with is the opening a question to start identifying profile. Ask questions about the reason they called you, the issue, how long has it been happening, what have you done before, anybody else, those kind of things. And then you start asking the other questions, like the ages question. How old's the home? How long you been here? Or how old's the thing? How long you been here? How long you plan to stay here? Then ask the maintenance and safety inspection question. Then ask the anything else question. You get all those questions answered, then you can make a good recommendation, because what makes up the first P, or the second P here in play that we'll get to in a later series, what makes this up, what forms the prescriptions is the answers to the questions and the results of the diagnostic. That's what makes up the recommendation. If you don't have both, how can you?
I don't get it.
You can't make a great recommendation.
I don't get it.
Now, here's some. So those are some of the theory things and the things we should do. Here's some really super basic practical stuff that I see, and I don't care if it's professional sales or service or diagnostic or maintenance or whatever, is act like you've been there. Move like you know what you're doing. Watch your body language. Be mindful of where you put your hands on things and if they're going to leave fingerprints. Like you talked about your mom, you know, be mindful of your grooming. That's all prepare stuff, right? Be mindful of your grooming, how you smell. Make sure you incorporate cleanliness habits into your work. And that goes from putting down a drop cloth all the way to, if you're a plumber and you're soldering a visible joint with copper, or you're doing some sort of crimp on or compression fitting, make sure it's straight, make sure it's clean looking, make sure it looks like you've done it before. But
even if it takes you a little bit longer.
Yes, exactly.
Because some people are going to look at that and go, that guy did great work, even though they don't know what they're looking at. Or same thing, they don't know what they're looking at and go, why is there crust hanging off of it? Or why is there splatter underneath it? And, you know, here's the thing. I think most people would be surprised at how many homeowners, even though their house may look like a freaking dump, how many people appreciate cleanliness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it goes back to me. I'm weird when I prep food. I'm super weird. I've worked in a bunch of restaurants and I wear nitrite gloves.
Nitrite.
Whatever.
Nitril.
Sure. NyQuil.
That's what
gloves.
you drink
lick them
profusely before you cook.
So I'm weird about it, right? But anybody that comes over and eats knows that anything that's been prepped by me is going to be prepped in the nicest way.
It's going to be clean.
It's going to be clean. There's not going to be any germs. And what's funny is the expectations, of homeowners.
Here, everybody.
And I'll blow them up and make little turkeys for my daughter.
All right. That's awesome.
But people's expectations are that you're going to be dirty. And if you just do a little something extra to let them know that you're not, you know, we talk about having a personal promise. My plumbers that when they go back and with recommendations and they tell Mrs. Jones, so here's the thing, any one of these options is going to be a great choice. Here's what I can guarantee you. My workspace and the area that you have me working is going to be cleaner than what I found it.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with HVAC guys. You know, here in the summer, it gets hot. Change your freaking shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to see the goo coming out, you know? And so
Axe body spray.
Yeah. And that Axe body spray. You
It's very
drinking
specific.
Mountain Dew.
No, it's bad. Yeah. I'm an extreme sports guy now.
Oh, X Games. But that's
parkour.
But that's part of the entire press. You know, when you're doing your system design or your system diagnostic, even though the homeowner might not be with you, and I highly recommend you always try to have
that's
them
on
come
the
with
board
you.
over here. We'll talk about that in a second.
But even if they're not with you, I promise there's opportunities during that time where they're checking in, or maybe they're glancing on the way from the laundry room to the kitchen. And you just have to make the expectation of yourself that there's always eyes on you when you're always being judged.
Yep. And to further that is with totally drew a blank. Body language.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
BL.
So here's an example I like to use, and I'll use like pottery, for instance. Okay. Do you know how to make pottery?
No, sounds like it's going to be super relatable to our listeners.
It will be.
Okay.
So do you know how to make pottery?
Actually, I have taken a pottery class.
Okay,
before.
You've taken a pottery class, so you have a little bit of knowledge. Okay. I've never taken a pottery class, but you know,
figures.
Yeah, you could tell, right?
Yeah,
it shows.
Yeah.
So
look at those hands.
But I get the idea. You take wet clay, you mold it, you fire it. You know, my cousin
put it on the spinny thing.
My cousin Nathan, who will definitely not be listening to this podcast, used to do raku pottery, which
raccoon pottery.
Raku.
Yeah.
And he would it's the glazing that you put on in the method.
Oh, cool.
But he used to do all that stuff, so I've seen him do it. Are you an expert?
No.
Can you throw around some pottery slang?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah. Like they call it earth, not clay. I just made that up.
So I was right.
I just made that up.
So,
but let's make one of them
an earthenware vessel. But my point is, I don't know a lot about it. You don't know a lot about it. We can get some layman's terms and all that kind of stuff for it. But the bottom line is, if you went to someplace where a professional was doing it, you could tell they were a professional. And you have no idea how to judge their work other than how they move, the confidence in which they move, the confidence in the way they speak about it, you can just tell their movements are planned and precise, and they've done it a lot. Plus, you can see the results of their work, and there's not like a bunch of sloppy-looking pottery everywhere, right?
Right.
And so even though your customer, and we've stressed it before, your customer is definitely not an expert. You are, and all this kind of stuff, and you have to be relatable to them. The way you carry yourself when you're doing this part of it, and also down here in the labor, you know, we talked about soldering pipes or whatever. That's the labor part of this. But if you assume you're being watched, the customer will judge whether you know what you're doing by the way you move. And, you know, I don't have a screwdriver here, but I had a tech that worked for me years ago, a guy by the name of Scott McKellar, rest in peace, but he went by Mac. So Mac came, he worked for the company I was at. I became and he had left before. I became the service manager, and he came back, and I interviewed him. Great guy, great tech, but he drank 3 gallons of coffee a day.
Oh, I've seen that. And they go to, and it's like,
It's exactly right. And here's the crazy, not sad, but the crazy part, the disconcerting part. He was a nuclear missile tech on submarines.
Stop.
And he would stick his hand in the panel. If you're watching, imagine the shakiest person sticking a screwdriver in a live panel trying to do something in an air conditioning system.
Hard pass.
Yeah. And so if you looked at him, you'd think, what the heck's up with this guy, right? But he was a great tech. He was a great troubleshooter, and he did great work. But it was hard for the customers to relate if they saw him doing that, right? So just know the customer's always watching and how you carry yourself, even in the diagnostic, even though you're not doing any work. And that's one more thing that sometimes we hear as a pushback for getting techs to do this training is that they say, why do I got to say all this stuff? Because I'll just let my work speak for me.
That's the funniest. Look at my hair. They can tell I do great work. I've got salt and pepper.
Now, there is something to the maturity of your look that says something to you, but know that your work doesn't speak for you the way you think it does.
After the fact,
if it works, okay, great. If there's no visual thing to judge, if it works, great. But what your work, and you're kind of right if you think that in a way, but not in the way you think. Your work does speak, but the way you do your work speaks for you.
Yep.
And I think the final point on system diagnostic that sometimes we, as techs, we don't like to do is let's involve the customer if we can.
No, I don't want them peeking behind me.
I don't want anybody watching over my shoulder and asking me a bunch of questions and all that.
I can't diagnose if they're asking me questions.
Let me ask you this, and I don't know of anybody who's measured this percentage, but how much more does it add to your closing percentage in professional sales if the customer's with you while you're doing your measurements and evaluation of ductwork and all that stuff?
I don't know. I definitely don't have a metric, but I can tell you my $2.5 million and plus guys, and we've got a lot of them. I can guarantee you, if you ask them, is their close rate better with or without the homeowner? I promise you, every single one's going to say with the homeowner. I'm
going to put 10 or 15 points on it. I think it's worth 10 or 15% more closes, maybe more, if the customer's with you.
For sure. I mean, that's not to say if the customer's not with you, you're not going to close.
No,
we've got a gazillion stories.
No silver bullet,
but the more they're involved, the more they're gaining confidence, trust, a relationship. And the biggest thing is the more information you're finding out to make the best possible recommendation. I had a guy ask me a couple of weeks ago, he said, so am I just asking all these questions to gain ammunition to come back and go, blah, 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 blah? I said, no, you're gaining this information so you can make the best possible recommendation. How can you make those recommendations without knowing what their long-term plans are? Is this their forever home? Do they have issues with blah, 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 blah? So, it's full circle in press.
Absolutely. So you may be thinking, well, how as a technician am I going to get a customer involved if I got to go across an attic?
Tell them.
Talk to them. Take a video of what you're doing to use when you present for your prescriptions here. Take a video so you can virtually involve them.
I've got guys doing literally FaceTime the homeowner
that's what I was getting
while
ready to
they're
say.
in their own home.
Absolutely. And so they FaceTime, they go under the house, they say, see, this is what we're looking at. The customer can ask questions live. The guy, you can point it out. So there's other ways to keep the customer involved other than having them standing over your shoulder and things like that. You just got to think about those things.
Easiest way to do it, give you a little nug, a little that you can use today.
A little who what?
A little who what? Mrs. Jones, before I get started, you know your system in your home better than I do. There's a few things I'd like for you to show me. You have them show you. And if you want the specifics, you need to come to class. But you have them show you those certain areas. And then you make a statement, something to the effect of, I would love if you stuck around with me so I could show you a few things. If you're busy, that's fine. Would you like for me to take pictures and videos? Or if I find something, do you want me to come grab you? Give them a couple different options. If they're a high D, you're going to know at this point in time, they ain't sticking around.
Right.
They're a high I, they're going to stick around and probably talk about random stuff. And you just have to be comfortable with it.
Yep.
Get over it. As Oprah would say, build a bridge and get over it. You know?
You get a car and you get a car.
I want a car.
No. So I think that wraps up the press before you can play. But let's recap. So We're going to out-thorough everybody.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to make sure that the way we do our work is going to say as much about us as how is the result of our work.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to make sure we involve the customer.
And be confident. I want to say one thing. You know, I've heard
one more thing, because you've said a lot of things,
which are a hot fire. I've heard people go, "Well, do I be the king of
the
wing?"
microphone's
Yeah,
not hot. No, it's not hot.
3rd-degree burns. You can't see it. Don't hold your hand up. Do I be the king of wing? Fake it till you make it. No, you got to be confident. But I work with a lot of guys that are either right out of trade school, apprentice plumbers or electricians that don't have the skill set and the knowledge. And I want to be crystal clear. If you don't know the answer to something, an acceptable answer to Mrs. Jones is, I don't know that. Nobody's ever asked me. I will stop what I'm doing right now and get the answer for you. Because all this be the king of wing and fake it till you make it crap, that's salesy to me. And I hate it.
So, and that's true. You know, confidence is a big part of it. And for you young guys and for veterans out there, the only way to gain confidence is to practice and study and learn more about what you do, so that when you get in the game, if you think of professional athletes, they practice more than they play. And you think about us.
They press
before they play?
Way before they play. And they practice the
what?
Snot out of press.
But that's the thing.
PG-13.
That's the thing is in the trades, and I did this. You know, you go to apprenticeship school or you go to trade school or something, or you go through a training program. You're super eager and you're practicing and you're taking quizzes and tests and
put me in,
whatever.
coach.
You're doing all that stuff, and then as soon as you get in the game or make it, you stop practicing.
Yeah, because you're there.
I made it. What do I need to practice for? So that's where the confidence comes from.
I imagine you didn't do that very long. You're one of the more studious people I've ever met.
Well, I learn all the time. I mean, I read all the time, and I'm okay doing those kind of things on my own. I don't need someone else to tell me.
Todd's not going to go, hey, I need you to read this book. You're going to read it. You probably read it before.
Yeah. So, but that's where confidence comes from, and that's what's going to help you. So that's a wrap up of press, prepare relationship, evaluate with questions, settle anxiety, system diagnostic, or system design.
Boom.
So we're going to have this podcast will end this series. We'll have a couple of podcasts. We're going to do a couple of client profiles and a couple of things. Then we'll be back with play.
I love it, man.
You play after you press.
Speaking of pressing and playing and practicing.
Uh-oh.
January 20th through 22nd, we've got the Tech and Sales series.
Well, hold on. Before you get into that, I'm going to ask you something.
Oh, what?
You know, we talked about doing something regular every week. And so we're going to get into the content faster. You know who you are. We're going to do that. But at the end, for those who like it, Chris, what grinds your gears this week?
Yes. You know what really grinds my gears?
What grinds your gears, Chris?
I'm glad you asked me.
If you can't find it, grind it.
Sorry. That's a message for our techs in Colorado and California. If you don't find it, grind it. What really grinds my gears, I will tell you a personal grinds my gears. I dislike it when people don't know how to drive. On the way over here, and I'm an expert driver. That's why he's laughing.
I can't say anything because you and I drive alike. So
that's true. But I hate people that are completely oblivious. They don't know very basic laws. Like
just
you can
get
take
a little bit of self-awareness, please.
Ooh, that was sassy. Chris, what grinds your gears?
That same thing.
Really?
No, I'll tell you. You know how we fly a lot, so we talk about frequent flyers and those kind of things, and how people bring bags on the plane, and if it's a roll-on, it doesn't. Okay? There's that. I know you've seen this. I might even think when you're one ear in your Bose headphones, you might have been this guy in your younger years.
Uh-oh.
There's the person on the flight. It's usually a guy. Okay? It's usually a guy.
Okay.
He's usually in an aisle seat.
Okay.
He's most definitely a frequent flyer, probably a pretty high up tier frequent flyer.
Okay.
He didn't get upgraded to first class because there were more frequent flyers in front of him with better status. So he didn't get upgraded like he usually does. So he's mad. So he's sitting in his seat. And then up the aisle walks somebody, like an older man, a younger woman, or something like that. But whoever it is, they've got a bag that's heavy, but obviously it fits in the overhead because they got through the gate agent, right? And they try to put it up in the overhead, and it's so heavy they can't lift it. And it's because maybe they're small statured or something like that, or the bag's just really heavy, but they can't get it. And so instinctively, I'll help people, or somebody else around them will help. And there's always one person, that guy who didn't get upgraded first class. He's one ear in his headphones, right? He's got his neck pillow.
No neck pillow for me.
No, well, that's okay. No neck. Oh, this person's got it. He's like, if she can't lift it, she shouldn't have it on here.
Dang.
You know what I'm talking about. You've seen
it. I do. I've seen it. I'm definitely not that guy. There's two. So my
gears.
My dad traveled a lot, so he told me several things. One, if you ever see anybody in uniform, thank them. You've seen me do that a ton. You guys will typically buy lunch or dinner for somebody in uniform and not tell them. But also always help other passengers. And I can't tell you how many times. I mean, we've gotten free drinks by being nice. I've gotten upgraded tons of times by being nice. That's an interesting gear grinder.
It is. How about this? Let's talk about our classes.
January 20th through 22nd is going to be a tech and sales series. I just got updated numbers, and they're pretty close to being full. We will not jam a bunch of people in a classroom, as many as possible. We limit our classes because it needs to be a little bit more of an intimate experience and environment. So those every January, they end up selling out. So if you're interested in coming to seeing us, go online and register, or you can contact either one of us. That's going to be January 20th through 22nd. That's tech and sales. Manager and CSR are going to be the 23rd and 24th. This is going to be in beautiful Austin, very close to downtown.
Yeah, we're in Bee Cave.
Bee Cave, which is beautiful.
Which you would not know you were really in Texas other than the accent and all the Texas flags and all the Texas references everywhere.
And cowboy hats.
Because of the hills. Most people think Texas is so flat, but that part of Texas, that's the top of the hill country. It's absolutely gorgeous there. There is a great rooftop restaurant with a terrace. They might have a bar.
I don't know.
Okay, they do have a bar.
Never seen it.
There's no way I could fake that one.
They make
anyway. It's a great hotel.
Yep.
We're doing something there this time. If you've been to our programs before, where we do it at the Sonesta and then we go to the training location at the church, we don't do that anymore. It's all at the Sonesta now, so you don't have to drive anywhere. You don't have to ride a shuttle or whatever. It's right there, and it's going to be great. And this will be the first time we've done it like that. We might have done one-off classes there before, but this is the first time we're taking our whole series there for at least the first half of the year.
So come check us out. You can register online at our website, servextra.com, servextra.com, or you can hit me up at 254-723-7459, or Chris, CHRIS, at servextra.com, or my sidekick.
No, that was my sidekick's information. And now mine is 254-733-7109. You can call or text, either one, or you can email me at elmore@servextra.com. Go to our website, www.servextra.com. There is a page with all our blogs, or there was all our blog stuff, but also a page with all our podcasts, including the videos of these podcasts. If you're not watching the videos,
you should.
You should be. I don't know why you're not. I mean,
you're missing out. Obvi.
Yeah.
Totes obvi.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're welcome for the content, by the way. But you can also sign up for classes there. You can call one of us to do that too, or the office number. So, Chris.
Yes.
Do you like that? You told me you like the orange dreamsicle.
That's the best. This is the best.
And it is Rain Total Body Fuel.
But it's orange dreamsicle. It tastes like you're eating an orange dreamsicle popsicle.
And they don't sponsor the podcast, but
they could.
They could.
Because they've got BCAA aminos, and everybody needs those aminos.
So, by the way, shout out to Jesse Olson at the Happy Outlet Tradition. Chris, what do we do at Service Excellence Training?
We turn learning into earning.
We stay doing that.
Steady.